All right, so I'm going to try to record this again. I don't know if something happened on the upload last time. So, here we are looking at Chapter 18, Curriculum Development. Another one of those topics that is very important in terms of instructional supervision, but one that we uh, don't necessarily think of a lot anymore because so much of it has changed from previous years with the advent of new policies and those kinds of things. So let's start galloping through some of these slides, make a few points along the way that and ask some questions for you to maybe pause and answer. I'm looking forward to reading your post-observation reports and hope everything's going well. All right, so the book talks about various sources of curriculum and lays it out really as those items farthest away, all the way down to the most local and basic. And so, commercial publishers who don't necessarily have a vested interest in the actual content themselves or creating curriculum. Their interest is profit and making money. Federal government obviously has a vested interest because they are spending money for public education in their various sorts of ways. State Department of Education spending more money, have greater vested interest, more local. Central offices even more local. Then finally we're down to teachers and schools. So we have this kind of continuum of places where that can happen. So this is a question that I don't know that we think about very much anymore because, quite honestly, so much of what we do is, I think, falls into this realm. So what are all the ways in which you think about policymakers of the state affecting the curriculum? And one of the biggest ways, obviously, that they do that is through the high-stakes tests. And here's some other questions. Who should be defining these curriculum standards? How much flexibility or freedom should happen within the local schools? Have we lost, or are we continuing to lose notions of local control? What does that mean? What does that look like? How is that actually playing out? So, the book talks about Miller and Sellers' work about what the purpose of curriculum is. Is it simply transmission of information? Is it this kind of transaction to develop, or are we really trying to transform and change kids in the world in which they live in? And related to that, then obviously becomes Bloom's taxonomy, which we've all looked at. And I want you to think about this question quite a bit. And it's fine that the answer to this question may not be where you want it to be. But I think you have to be honest about where you are in your district, in your school, and in your own classroom in terms of where are you really operating in this taxonomy? Are you creating opportunities for kids to work farther up, or are we at the lowest levels? Or do we feel compelled to work at the lowest levels because of what's on the test, because of all these other kinds of issues? And the book talks about how we ought to organize curriculum. Is it discipline-based, very segmented, partitioned, siloed? Do we look for spans across, or do we kind of wash away the disciplines and have the key elements of the disciplines kind of grow out organically of these other issues that we work with? Then, what format should it be written? Is it really restrictive, students' will kinds of behavioral objective kinds of things, or is this about this results? We don't care how or what we use to get there as long as we're producing results on the other end. So one of the ones in the middle there is the webbing format. Here's an image from the text about what that looks like. Another image from the text is this curriculum cone, where we go from having really no choice in the way things operate, very scripted, very tight, all the way out to this host of possibilities in terms of results only, where we have total choice, and teachers have a lot of say in the way in which that operates. Here are all those kinds of various components in a matrix to see how they are related. So we have transmission, this real low-level kind of memory, all the way up to transformation, where we're engaged in this synthesis and evaluation kind of process. We are spanning across lots of notions of what the disciplines are, and then results are the key, right? Student work product becomes the measure of whether a student has achieved what we want them to achieve within the versus some kind of prescriptive test or a specific kind of essay that everyone writes. So these are various kinds of notions. And then what role does the teacher play within that? And here we see 3 levels, right? Where really it's you're stewards of an existing curriculum all the way up to creative and generative, where you get a lot of freedom and a lot of say in that process. And I think we probably have a group of educators in our schools that recall a time in which we're kind of spanning between levels 2 and 3, and now I feel like we're probably spanning more between levels 1 and 2, where we've become more prescriptive with our curriculum, we've become more prescriptive on our instructional methodologies, more prescriptive in exactly what kids at each grade level and each course realm should be knowing, and that the teachers are kind of in maintenance of that. Maybe have some opportunities to play around sometimes, but not a lot. But that's the way I kind of see the way schools have shifted over even the years that I've been involved in public ed. And then there's this discussion in the chapter around cultural diversity and Banks' kind of this multicultural reform, that we go from kind of this contributions where we recognize slaves were used to build the monuments and the buildings of Washington, D.C., all the way to this kind of social action approach where we start taking on issues to try to mitigate the kinds of issues that exist today, right? So we go from this very kind of recognition of existence and contribution all the way to really kind of a social justice kind of a initiative. And finish with this slide here from Gay that recognizes the fact that we're still in this discussion in schools where we feel like we have these discussions at times where privileging and promoting promoting diversity is a compromise to these high quality programs. That the high quality programs are very white and very privileged, and so we've got to continue to buck this kind of notion to be more inclusive within our curriculum. So there's a quick and dirty through this process. Have a good week. We'll talk to you soon.